Good morning, students. So, welcome to the session. So, in the last module, I had discussed about the different costing systems and methods. So, we will be solving problems on the first method, that is unit costing. So, in this problem, we are going to discuss about how to prepare a cost sheet with the given information. So, if you see on the left side, so here's a problem, and so we are going to solve this problem using a Excel. So whenever you're preparing a cost sheet, so you need to understand that cost sheet has different components, that is a prime cost segment, then factory overheads, administrative overheads, then selling and distribution overheads. So finally we'll come to know what is a sales. So when a problem is given, so we need to first go through the problem and find out where each item we need to represent in the cost sheet. So if you see the first problem, the following information has been obtained from the records of Left Center Corporation for the period from June 1st to June 30th, 1998. So it's a 1 month data that is given for us, and let's go through it. So the cost of raw material on June 1st, 1998 is 30,000. Purchase of raw material during the month, wages paid, factory overheads, cost of work in progress. This is the opening cost of work in progress. Cost of raw materials on June 30th. This is the closing stock of raw materials. Cost of stock of finished goods against opening stock of finished goods. Cost of stock of finished goods. There is a closing stock of finished goods. Selling and distribution overheads. Sales and administrative overheads. So having gone through the problem, so where we are going to show all these items in the cost sheet. So the first part, cost of raw materials is represented in prime cost. So for the cost of raw materials, we need to add purchase of raw materials. From this, we need to deduct the closing stock of raw materials. So by doing so, we come to know what is the raw material consumed during that particular period. Then wages paid is again a part of prime cost. Factory overheads, so the total amount of factory overheads already given for us, so it will come in factory overhead section. So for the factory overheads, there is a working we are supposed to do, that is the cost of work in progress we need to add up. From this, we need to deduct the closing cost of work in progress. So in case if the closing stock of work in progress is not given, then you can just ignore it. So in this problem, only we are given the opening stock of work in progress, so we need to just add to the factory overheads. Okay, so then the cost of stock of finished goods. So the cost of stock of finished goods, opening and closing, again these two adjustments we are supposed to be doing in administrative overhead section. Then finally, selling and distribution overhead is represented in selling and distribution section, and finally sales. So with this background, let's start recording the information. So the first one, cost of raw material, I'll write here cost of raw material, inner column 30,000. So for this, add purchase of raw material 4,50,000. So I get the total, that is 4,80,000 less the cost of raw material on 30th June, that is 15,000. Closing stock of raw material 15,000. So by doing so, we come to know what is the material consumed during the period. So from 4,80,000 minus the 15,000. So this is the amount of raw material consumed. Next, for this we need to add, we need to write the next item, it is wages. So direct wages 2,30,000. So we don't have any direct expenses here. So by adding these two items, we get what is known as the prime cost. So I highlight this prime cost figure, so that it will be easy for us to understand. So the next heading is factory overheads. So since we already given what is the total factory overheads here, 92,000. So I'll write here 92,000 factory overheads in the inner column, and for this I add opening stock of work in progress. So the opening stock of work in progress is 12,000. So we are not given the closing stock of work in progress. So I'll take the total 1,04,000 less closing stock of work in progress. So it is not given. So the final amount is 104,000. So by adding the prime cost and the factory overheads total, so we get what is known as a factory cost. Now we move on to the administrative overheads. So by adding the administrative overheads, that is 30,000, we get what is known as cost of production. So for the cost of production, we are supposed to do a small adjustment in case if we are given opening and closing stock of finished goods. So add opening stock of finished goods, that is 60,000. Get the total less closing stock of finished goods. So the closing stock of finished goods is 55,000. So by doing so, we get what is known as cost of goods sold. So in case if there is no any adjustment regarding to opening stock of finished goods and closing stock of finished goods, then the cost of production itself becomes the cost of goods sold. But since in this case we are given the details, so we need to consider that. The next item is selling and distribution overhead. So the selling and distribution overhead is given as 20,000. So we get here the 8,34,000 plus the 20,000 selling and distribution overhead, 8,54,000. So this is called as cost of sales. Now for the cost of sales, if we add profit, we get sales. So already the sales figure is given for us, it is 9 lakhs. So the difference between the cost of sales and the sales will give us a profit. So I'll just write here profit, that is from the 9 lakhs minus 8,54,000. So in this way a cost sheet is prepared. So here we are not given in terms of how many units are manufactured during this particular period, hence we are not computing the cost per unit. But since it's the first problem, so we need to understand how the information is presented in a cost sheet, and through this we'll understand. So the major portion of the component of cost sheet, if you observe, so the prime cost happens to be the major contribution in this, whereas the selling and distribution overhead is just about 20,000. Okay, so I'll save this file. Solution on unit costing. Okay, so now let's move on to the second problem. So in the second problem, we are going to slightly look into some more details. So again, it's about preparation of cost sheet, but here we have more number of items compared to the previous one. So let's read the problem and understand where each of these items are going to be shown in the cost sheet. So I have done the format well in advance just to save the time. Okay, so let's read the problem. So the first item is raw materials. It comes under prime cost. Productive wages, prime cost. Direct expenses, prime cost. Unproductive wages, it's a part of administrative overheads. Sorry, it's about factory overheads. Factory rents and taxes, again a factory overhead. Factory lighting, factory overheads. Factory heating, factory overheads. Motive power, factory overheads. Haulage, factory overheads. Directors fees, work cities, so it's a factory overheads. Directors fees, office, administrative overheads. Factory cleaning, factory overheads. Central office expense, administrative overheads. Expenses, so when I just mentioned about expenses where we are not specifying whether it's administrative, selling and distribution, so you have choice to whether you can represent. So we consider this expense as an administrative expense. Factory stationery, factory overheads. Office stationery, office overheads. Loose tools written off, it's a factory overheads. Rent and taxes, office administrative. Water supply, factory. Factory insurance, factory overheads. Office insurance, office administrative. Legal expense, administrative. Rent of warehouse, it's a selling and distribution. Depreciation, again here we are given specifically. Plant and machinery, factory overheads. Office building, administrative overheads. Depreciation on delivery vans, it's a selling and distribution. Bad debts is a loss on account of sales, so it will be not shown in our cost sheet. Advertising, again selling and distribution. Sales department salary, selling and distribution. Upkeeping of delivery van, selling and distribution. Bank charges, again it is need to be ignored. Commission on sales, selling and distribution. So in this way, when you know that each of these items where they are going to be represented, so and also you have also mentioned the total output for the period has been 10,000 tons. So while preparing the cost sheet, we are not just preparing the cost sheet with the amount, plus we also be showing you what is the cost per unit at each stages. So let's start again one by one. So the first item being a raw material. So in the entire problem, if having gone through, so there is nothing like adjustment in terms of opening stock of raw material, closing stock of raw material, material purchase kind of adjustment. So hence raw material directly write it in the outer column. Raw materials 33,000. Next is about the productive wages. Productive wages 35,000. Direct expenses 3,000. So this part is our prime cost. So this amount 71,000 will be divided by the output, that is 10,000 tons. So you get a cost per unit or cost per unit, okay, or the cost per ton. The next is about the factory overhead. So which are the items that comes under factory overhead, we keep recording them. The first one is unproductive wages. that is 10,500. Then we have factory rent and taxes 2,200. Factory lighting 1,500. Factory heating 4,400. Motive power 3,000. Haulage 1,000. So then I'm going to look into the other ones, that is directors fees bracket works 2,000. Then factory cleaning, so I'm going to select only those items which are going to be forming a part of factory overheads. So factory cleaning 200. Then factory stationery 900. Loose tools written off 300. So amount 300. So here the amount is missing, it is 300. Next, water supply 1,200. Then we have a factory insurance 1,100. Then depreciation on plant and machinery 2,000. Then so these are the items which are going to be forming a part of a factory overheads. So for the prime cost, when you add up all the factory overheads, so we get 1,01,300. This is the factory cost. Again, this particular factory cost is going to be divided by the number of tons, that is 10,000. So you get 10.13 per ton. Then we move on to administrative overhead. So under the administrative overhead, so let's look into which are the items. So one is the director's fees, that is office at 500. Then we have sundry office expense 800. Then we have expenses. So since it is not specified clearly what exactly, so we are considering it as administrative expenses. Then we have office stationery 600. Next, rent and taxes office 500. Office insurance 500. Legal fees 400. Legal fees 400. Then we have depreciation on office building depreciation on office building amounting to rupees 1000. Then over. So these are the items forming a part of administrative overheads. So this becomes our cost of production as well as cost of goods sold. Since we don't have any opening stock of finished goods and closing stock of finished goods, so this particular amount is going to become a part, both, that is cost of production and cost of goods sold. Again, dividing this by the number of tons manufactured, so it comes to 10.63 per ton. Now finally we need to add selling and distribution overheads. So under the selling and distribution overheads, so we are going to start with very few items are there under this particular heading. That is the delivery van amounting 200. So delivery van 200. Then we have advertising 300, sales department salary 1500, upkeeping of delivery van 700, depreciation on delivery van. So under the depreciation heading we had a depreciation on delivery van 200. So this particular item we already recorded. So there is a repetition happening here. So I'll just remove this part and adjustment type here as depreciation on delivery van. Then we also had one more item, that is rent of a warehouse. Amounting to 300. So bank charges, it's a financial expense, it is ignored. Finally commission on sales 1500. So again, by adding all this, so we get cost of sales or the total cost. So since we are not given the sales, what is the selling price and what is the profit margin to be included, so our problems ends here. So from this what we are going to learn is the cost of manufacturing per ton of the product or the output. If you observe, it is coming to 11.08 per ton. So in this way the cost sheet is prepared when I given the information regarding all the components that are used in manufacturing a given product as such. Okay. So let's move on to the third problem. So I'm going to keep this problem slightly open so that you people can see the things carefully. Okay, so let's come to the third problem. So the third problem is about a small calculation. So it's basically about only how to calculate a factory cost for the following particulars. So it's very simple. You people also can do it, but just to understand as to how the factory cost is calculated, so this problem has been selected. So here if you see, the first item is material consumed, productive wages, direct expenses, consumable stores, oil, grease, salary of factory managers, unproductive wages, factory rent, repairs and depreciation on machine. So the material consumed, productive wages and direct expenses, these three are a part of a prime cost. So for the prime cost, if we add all these items, consumable stores, oil, grease, salary of factory managers, unproductive wages, factory rent, repairs and depreciation, we get what is known as a factory cost. Okay, so I'll just write up here: material consumed 60,000, productive wages 20,000, direct expenses 5,000. So total comes to 85,000. This is our prime cost, and for this we are going to add factory overheads to get factory cost. That is consumable stores 2,000, oil, grease 500, then salary of a factory manager 6,000, unproductive wages 1,000, factory rent 2,000, repair and depreciation on machine 600. So by adding all this, by adding the factory overheads to the prime cost, we get what is known as factory cost. So these are the first three problems to begin with in understanding how the cost sheet is prepared. So how each item of the cost sheet is going to be represented in different sections, and how the calculation runs. So the next problems from problem number 4 onwards, so we are going to slightly go into a complex kind of calculations, and that we are going to show it in my next video. Okay, so thank you.